Hello viewers! Now I'm going to add a new word in this language. The word is transpolary. Now I gotta explain what for the word is it and what does it sound so.
Well, let us start with physical and geographic aspects. Transpolary is the territory beyond a polar circle, and you likely have a question what polar circle is. We have two polar circles, Arctic and Antarctic, or northern and southern in my native language. They are about the position of the sun. You can see polar days beyond them at summer season and polar nights at winter season. Guess that you're asking me what for the polar days and nights. Well, to understand that, we need to understand what days and nights are in general and what seasons are.
Well, it's obvious that day is when the sun is shining and night is when there's no sun and it's dark. But why does day and night change each other? The Earth is a sphere that's rotating around its own axis, and when the Earth is turned to the sun, it is bright. When the Earth is turned away from the sun, it is dark. So day is when the Earth is shined by the sun, and night is when the Earth is in its own shade. Earth has two hemispheres, southern and northern. Earth has two poles, the southern and the northernmost points of a planet, and what's most important, Earth is inclined. But at the days of summer, spring and fall equinox, it's standing straight, or maybe hanging straight. Anyway, at these 2 days, the day is approximately equal all over the Earth. But two poles are lighting equally. The sun is shining for days there and it doesn't set, and this is what polar days are. But equinoxes are just 2 days. After the equinox, the hemisphere where its spring begins to incline towards the sun, and polar day is shining for more and more territory around the pole. And the hemisphere discontinues to incline at the summer solstice, and after that it turns back. At the other hemisphere, where it's fall, the hemisphere turns away from the sun, and the sun discontinues to rise over the pole and over more and more territories around it. And the polar night begins so, and after winter solstice the hemisphere discontinues to turn away and begins to turn back.
So this is how polar day and night works. When it's night at the eastern hemisphere, the sun might glide along the top or bottom of the eastern hemisphere due to the inclination of the planet. When it's day at the eastern hemisphere, the sun might not shine over the top or bottom of the eastern hemisphere due to the inclination of the planet. This is why days are long at summer and short at winter. This is why day and night change each other, and this is why seasons are changing. But Earth does not incline at the same side forever. Polar days and polar nights can't be seen everywhere. They must have some border. Polar circle meant to be one. If you look at the map of the world, you will see dotted lines at far north and south of the world, which signed as polar circles, but they are misleading dotted lines. Due to the refraction, light can bypass some little hurdles, so we can see sun at sunset and sunrise when it's actually under the horizon, and the days lasts a bit longer than they must. Due to the refraction, you can't see polar nights at the lands that are joining polar circle from the side of the pole, despite its transpolary, and you can see polar days at lands that are joining polar circle from the opposite side, despite it's not transpolary. Polar circle is the border of polar day and night ideally, but de facto it's the latitude where half of the sun sticks out of the horizon at the brightest moment of winter solstice and darkest moment of summer solstice. Now linguistic aspect. Why does the word sound so? Well, it's my attempt to calc the word from the other language. What calc is? Calc is a literal translation of all elements of a word. The word transpolary is an attempt to calc the word zapolarye. First, za. It's a prefix and preposition that has different meanings in different cases. In this case, it means beyond, but beyond can't be used as a prefix, so we have to look for a replacement. There was a place called Transleithania. The name means land beyond Leith River. It's marked with a blue color here. There is another word, Transcaucasia or Transcaucasus, the land beyond mine Caucasian range. These examples shows that trans can be used as a replacement of beyond. And I guess that these two examples shows the essence of my translation in general. Anyway, let's go further. Pole, the root, same in both languages, borrowed from the third language, so I don't even need to translate it. Further, we have elements that found no place in my translation. Suffix yar. It's necessary so it would be clear that the word is about polar circle. If we would say Zapolye, it would sound like something beyond field, transfieldy. It's ridiculous, and I wouldn't have discovered that if I wouldn't explain that to you. Soft sign, guess that it's interfix. The letter has no sounding itself, but on one hand it shows that letter R must be soft, on the other hand it shows that the last letter must be read as yeah, not as eh. The last letter is ending. Due to presence of grammatical cases in the language, in different situations, endings sounds different. This ending indicates that the word is in nominative case, default form of a word. Let's get back to my translation. Suffix R. It's necessary so it would be clear that the word is about polar circle. Maybe it can be actually equated to the suffix yar. Moreover, if we will say transpoly, I don't know what would it mean. Suffix y, well, it have been added analogously to the words like beggar, beggary, diction, dictionary. It's hardly possible to find nouns with such suffix. Actually, I could call it transpolary analogously to words Transcaucasia and Transleithania, but somehow I prefer to call it transpolary. Now let's find out why presence of this word is useful, why it gives new abilities to the language. Well, let's begin with I'm not the first one who's trying to translate the word. Here is an example of translation. They translate it as Arctic, but let's find out what Arctic is and is it right to translate the word so. There are different points of view what border of Arctic is. First version, it's the Arctic Circle. Second version, the border of Arctic is the border of tundra, where trees doesn't grow. Third version, the border comes by the isotherm, where the average summer temperature is not plus 10 degrees Celsius or plus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Arctic can be also something juridical, some administrative unit of a country. So the only thing that can be said for sure is Arctic is the north of the world. In Call of Duty Black Ops there's level Project Noah, and it says that the protagonists have been sent to Arctic Circle. I can interpret that with three ways. The events takes place just at the latitude of the Arctic Circle, or they takes place in transpolary, but due to lack of a term, devs call it Arctic Circle, or devs doesn't know geography and used term wrong for that reason. But there's another level in the game, Vorkuta, And yeah, it's Vorkuta, not Vorkuta like they call it in the game. The term Arctic Circle is not used there. If we look at the map, we will see that Vorkuta is situated in transpolary. I must note that Vorkuta is at 67th parallel, while Arctic Circle is 66th parallel. But if term Arctic Circle used in meaning of transpolary, they could use it towards Vorkuta. But let's ask ourselves a question: if Vorkuta is Arctic. Judging by above mentioned yardsticks, Vorkuta town is beyond the polar circle, in tundra, in Arctic zone, and it's standing aside from the isotherm. So by 3 of 4 yardsticks it's Arctic. These facts shows that not everyone will recognize some land Arctic just because it's north of the northern polar circle. But there's another important moment. Transpolary is the land beyond a polar circle, so let's shift to the other side of the world. This is the far south, Antarctic and Antarctica. Don't mix them up. Antarctica is a mainland, while Antarctic is Antarctica and some adjoining territories. What's the border of Antarctic? There's 2 opinions. First, it's the 60th parallel, the circle around Antarctica. Second, it's the Antarctic convergence, the other line. It's the place where cold waters from the south meeting warmer waters from the north, or something like. I don't really understand. But there's also southern polar circle or Antarctic. How to isolate territories south of it? They might call territories north of northern polar circle Arctic, but some territories north of Antarctic circle is Antarctic, so we can't use that word. We could probably call it Antarctica after the mainland, but some lands of the mainland are north of the polar circle as well, so we can't use that word either. And here comes word transpolary. It's good enough to isolate the lands south of Antarctic circle. So word transpolary can be used towards territories beyond both polar circles, and not only on Earth. Since polar circles can be on any planet that inclined, you can use the word towards them as well, and this is why it is good. Well, actually, Arctic was not the only try to translate the word. Here's the other variation of translation. Polar region. Yeah, it's way more accurate than Arctic. You can call far south with that way, and polar regions at other planet, but why must I use such a long combination of words if I can use a pithy word in my native language? I gotta use a pithy word in this language as well. It will be good if you gotta use my word in your speech, and maybe if it will turn to official terms sometime in future. But first of all, I have translated it for myself, so I would be able to use it in my videos and viewers would understand what for the word is it. Well, actually it's not my word, I just calced it, and I don't have viewers. Well, I have some views, but some random viewers came here somehow. Maybe I made some views myself. I actually did, but not all views, but some of them. Sometimes I am greeting viewers in the beginning, and it's actually a dialogue with no one. Well, you can also use word transfildy if you will need it for some reason.